All right, kids, from 2011 to 2020, the most rural counties in the US had a 37% higher rate of gun deaths per capita than the most urban counties, according to research published in the journal JAMA Surgery. That's up from a 25% difference from 2000 to 2010. As reported by NBC News, the findings are based on an analysis of data from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. The authors attributed the trend to a rise in gun suicides, which outnumbered gun homicides in 2021 by more than 5,300 and are more likely to occur in rural counties. More on this later. So, not that it's this simple, but gun deaths are worse in rural counties and southern states, and those places typically vote red. Despite that fact, as you'll see today, the problem with guns and violent crime is seen differently.
From coast to coast, crime is exploding in Democrat-run cities.
Lawlessness in blue cities continues.
Portland and in Seattle and Chicago, there's all hell is breaking loose in New York,
where people are regularly shot, beaten, and robbed in public.
Every city, it is out of control.
Chicago has become a sanctuary for violent, depraved criminals.
San Francisco devolved into a hellhole.
LA County, this is a lawless hellhole.
Dangerous, filthy hellhole.
I am getting out of this hellhole.
Your safety is in peril with Democrats in power.
We're going to talk about blue cities versus red cities, and we need to focus on the murder rate because memes like this exist. Now, none of what you see here on screen is true. It's false. It's been fact-checked. Whoever made this meme made up this data. Not only does the United States not have or hasn't had the third highest murder rate in the world, not even close, but the vast majority of cities around the country, liberal or conservative, don't establish their own gun laws. So how could this meme tell if gun laws are strict or not? Besides, quote, Chicago, Detroit, Washington, D.C., St. Louis, and New Orleans have homicide rates well above the national average, but that's typical for large urban cities, per PolitiFact. So, it's large cities have a violent crime problem and they vote blue, not large cities have a violent crime problem because they vote blue. I should say, there really isn't a such thing as a red city in America. I mean, there's a few, but 62 of the 100 largest and 35 of those 50 cities in this country have Democrat mayors. Independent and nonpartisan mayors currently run 10 cities in the US. That leaves 26 cities with mayors that have party affiliations with the GOP, the largest of which is Jacksonville, Florida. Does Jacksonville have issues with violent crime, gun crime, and homicide? Yes. It's lower than that of the 5 cities listed on that meme, but not only is Jacksonville's homicide rate worse than that of New York City and Los Angeles, but Florida's homicide rate and gun death rate is worse than New York's and California's. Now, when someone like me or other creators who finds this info to be common knowledge by now shows how there's a red state murder rate problem, which is likely due to poverty and lax gun laws, amongst other things. I've already made a video about how gun laws work. I'm told, well, it's because of blue cities. But hey, in order for that to work, we would have to ignore the fact that blue states have blue cities too. More of them, actually. So you would think that would make the murder rate in blue states worse. And we would have to ignore math.
Missouri has a population of about 6.124 million people. If we take out the largest cities from Missouri, so that's 428 murders and about 795,000 people from Kansas City and St. Louis, we get a new population of 5.329 million people, or about 53.29 thousands. Not accounting for Kansas City and St. Louis, Missouri had 375 homicides in 2020. Dividing that by 53.29, we get a homicide rate of 7.04, which is 17% higher than California's homicide rate and 52% higher than New York's homicide rate.
Diva Sunglasses did the same thing with Mississippi and Oklahoma. Oklahoma, where their governor said this during a debate.
Fact is, the rates of violent crime are higher in Oklahoma under your watch than in New York and California. That's a fact.
Well, we'll have that fact checked by the Frontier Superintendent.
It's also a fact that medical marijuana...
Oklahomans, do you believe we have higher crime than New York or California? That's what she just said.
That dude ended up winning. I can't tell if Governor Kevin Stitt truly didn't know Oklahoma's crime rate as compared to New York, or if he was lying because he didn't think that the audience knew. Either way, is that because conservative candidates rely on information from conservative media, or politicians are feeding pundits propaganda. Also, is the average person just looking at total gun deaths per city and state and keeping it moving without considering averages? I mean, I get it when, over the course of one weekend, for example, 7 people in Indianapolis get shot and 21 people in Chicago get shot, the bigger number gets more attention. Sure. Right then and there wouldn't be the best time to mention, oh, that makes sense seeing how Chicago has a population that's 3 times as many people as Indy with a similar homicide rate year to year. However, doesn't it stand to reason that NYC and LA and Chicago, the 3 cities with the largest populations in America, are generally more likely to have more total gun deaths than cities with smaller populations? Which is why it's more helpful to look at rates. Which is why data shows that rural counties struggle with this more than large cities. Which is why many aren't aware of these facts. Which is why Democrats should oppose some of these talking points more often. Quick recap. I've got studies, data, and math proving my point. Meanwhile, those who will continue to claim that blue cities are more dangerous than red cities have this.
A third-way study last month showed red states have the highest murder rates, which led to Hillary Clinton saying Republican policies are to blame. Well, a new study by Heritage Foundation adds context. According to the study dubbed the Blue City Murder Problem, released this week, of the 30 American cities with the highest murder rates, 27 of them are led by Democrat mayors. Within those 27 cities, 14 employ so-called rogue prosecutors who are either backed or influenced by progressive billionaire George Soros.
Woke prosecutors backed by George Soros. Look, I know and everybody seems to know that St. Louis, Baltimore, New Orleans, and many other Dem-led cities are high up on the homicide rate list. The vast majority of them. That's true. However, most of the safest cities in America are blue too. Most cities are blue. Can't stress that enough. Conservatives, firearm death rates are consistently higher in rural counties than in big cities, based on 2 decades of data. Also, the RAND report found that gun homicide rates were highest in southern states, particularly Louisiana and Mississippi in 2020. So if you pan out, what appears to be a city issue is more like a county issue. Step back a little further, and it's a state issue in a country that has more guns in circulation than people. Forest from the trees or something like that. In urban spaces, you're in closer proximity to others, denser populations, where an interpersonal conflict which leads to pew-pew than in wide open spaces, with country miles, amber waves of grain, where the deer and the antelope play, so I've been told. And gun violence is self-inflicted due to lax gun laws, leading to easy access to firearms, and lawmakers not directing funds to make access to mental health simple, while the media is barely highlighting any of this. Before I go, there will be those who would like to remove suicides from firearm death rates, like only showing homicides does something. Those people don't want to do anything about or for mental health. Gotta ask why mass shootings and suicides are viewed as mental health issues and not homicide. Doesn't make sense that killing multiple people or killing oneself signals poor mental health, but not when a shooting involves less than 3 people, not including the shooter. With all of that said, I sit here in the blue city that I was born in from the red state that raised me as part of the Midwest, knowing full well how gun crime and violence impacts black communities in particular. It's affected me, my family, and friends specifically. Yet, there are people around these United States who have it much worse, and wealthy countries around the world who have it way better. And I gotta address this nonsense? Took me a while to get it, but our knees get weak, our gun might blow, but we gonna be all right.
Sexy.